And then the advice for if you want to run a show, I think the biggest, most critical thing is, like, please work on someone else's show, because boarding and doing revisions and all the work I did on Adventure Time, I never could have put together a team, a production team, if I hadn't seen what a production team looks like and understood, you know, how a storyboard-driven show functions. I see a lot of people who really want to skip the step of working on someone else's project and just dive right into their own, which is also great. I come from independent comics. Nothing's stopping anyone from making an original story right now in that format. But if you're working in television animation, I think it's really helpful and healthy for the team you end up working with to just understand that pipeline. For example, when I was starting the show, they tried to convince me to get rid of the entire direction X sheets department. But because I'd studied animation and because I'd been on production, I knew that you need exposure sheets in order for the movement to happen. So I said, no, we can't cut this department. Everyone will be guessing how the timing is supposed to work if we don't have anybody laying it out. But I was young, and if I hadn't worked in television animation, I wouldn't have, they could have cut that department, and then the thing would have looked completely bizarre. So
well, we just would have had way more retakes that we'd have to do in order to make it look right.
Yeah, and I saw that happen to other shows. They got rid of that whole department, and then they would get the work back, and they'd go, "Why is this so wrong?" And so somebody asked me once, like, I don't understand, like half the scenes are wrong, and I was like, you know, you're not giving them, they're guessing. I'm surprised that they would guess right half the time. That's a miracle. It's, you know, you have to tell people how these things, how you want them to be. So yes, understanding the pipeline, understanding what goes into it is so critical. Even the really dry stuff, the really dry production stuff, the labeling stuff, how to label a storyboard. The more you know about that stuff, the better you'll be at managing a team. And so I strongly recommend working on someone else's show and just being really curious about every aspect of the pipeline, so that when you make your own, this is something I talk about with Ian a lot too. So much of how a show looks in the end is because of how you set up the pipeline, where you decide that care should go, where you put your resources, because in television animation you don't get a lot of resources, so you really have to decide what you're prioritizing. That affects the final look completely. So, and a lot of people are frustrated and sad about that because it doesn't look like a feature. But when you really understand that, you can start to strategize to make what you care about be at the forefront of the thing.
Also, sorry if you don't know what X sheets are. We didn't come prepared with a screen to share for that, so feel free to look it up.
Yeah, check out an exposure sheet. Basically, at any, like, say there's a line of dialogue, you know, it says like looking, it'll be spelled out looking, like all down every frame, and then which mouth goes with each frame, and then where the, you know, if you're raising your hand is here, and then it's here on exactly which frame. You have to know that's where the animation happens. If we were doing it all in-house, then maybe we wouldn't have to spell it out in that way, but because we're explaining this to another team of animators, we have to be very clear.